Hello and welcome to the Series 3 of the Thefanpubcast. You right, Sean?
It's good to be back, yeah. It's been too long, isn't it? We have to dust off every single year we come back. I've been watching a lot of other people's podcasts and, get a lot of inspiration from that because it makes you appreciate what we do, actually, and why we're a little different now.
Yeah, we've been doing all right, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I think when you look back on last year, which was the most exciting thing, I think we were different than a lot of podcasters. We made some
we're English for a start.
For starters, yeah. We made a lot of ballsy predictions, and I think on the main, when you look back at it, particularly some of those mock drafts and some of the positions where we put some of those players, that was a really, really strong year. Really was. Particularly those deep sleepers. That's got to excite anybody, particularly coming from us. We're not supposed to know anything. I think it was really good. That was a great list, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, as usual, if you like what we do, please
subscribe and please share the videos. We need to get the message out there. There is a UK podcast, and we do help fantasy people, and that is what we want to do. And we want to stick our necks out every single year and do things a little differently than other people, and not just follow the sheep. But very interesting watching what other people have been doing this off season in terms of where fantasy experts ADPs have been going. It's been interesting so far.
All right, well, let's get into it. Okay, what we thought we'd do, because it's the first episode of the new season, we thought we'd go through each team and where they've lost people and where they've gained people and who could be, value for each team. So
yeah, it's a good idea fantasy-wise. Where do you want to start?
There's a lot of change happen. That's what you need to know when who's got a better opportunity, who's moved, that sort of thing. Okay, let's start with the Buffalo Bills, everyone's favourite fantasy team.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big news is Tyrod Taylor's moved on, now with the Browns.
Yeah, I think I'd like to start there, actually. I'd like to say this and get this on record. I think he's seriously undervalued. I know he's not with them anymore, but Tyrod Taylor is a much better quarterback than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I think the Bills made a bit of a mistake here letting him go, and I really do like him as a quarterback, and I do think he offers some value out there, and more than most people are giving him any credit for. He's more than capable of a top 16 finish, more than capable. And he does something in fantasy that's not easy to replicate, which is a shortcut to fantasy success is a quarterback that can throw as well as run, and he does both those things very well. So he could be a surprise. He could surprise people this year.
Yeah, dual threat. So
always worth bearing that in mind. Particularly
he is a good thrower though, because he's an excellent rusher. I mean, he gets your points that way.
You have to remember, one thing we have not seen yet is he's been working in Buffalo, and for half of a season, that's a pretty difficult place to throw a football, to be honest. And I think he's done a good job, actually. So
is it down to personnel, or is it down to the conditions in Buffalo?
I think a bit of both, personnel and conditions. Remember, he hasn't really had what I would call a full deck. We've never seen him with a team around him that you can say, well, actually, that's the quarterback's fault, or it's not the quarterback's fault. I think he was better than advertised. I think he's going to surprise people now that he's moved on. And I don't think he's just a bit part player. There is a gap in the NFL for quality quarterbacks. There is a market for a player like him.
Okay, well,
but we need to focus on the Bills, of course.
I mean, they've lost Jordan Matthews. He's now with the Patriots.
Yeah.
Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones has been up to extraordinary things in the off-season. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, it looks weird.
Strange.
Yeah,
you can Google it if you want to see it. It's odd, but
these things do have fantasy impacts because you've got to worry when you. I mean, obviously I don't think at the moment anything is shaken out that way. You would think he's definitely going to face any kind of suspension. But the worrying thing is, I think that other things may come out in time. Maybe not this season.
It's just troubling,
but worrying, and particularly worrying, I guess, if you're in Dynasty. And I mean, if we start with Zay Jones, I don't think he's going to have a huge impact for this season either, to be honest with you. So fantasy-wise, I haven't got a lot of hope. I've got to be honest.
Late round flyer at best.
At best, there is some hope for him. No, I'm not a huge fan of Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, no disrespect to the guy. I think we both agree. Our problem with Kelvin Benjamin is we have the feeling, and this is just how we feel about it. We feel when the hits come, and there are some seriously good corners out there. When he takes a good licking, he doesn't really come back into games. He tends to fade off. And that's always worried me. I mean, there's no doubt when the guy's on song, he can dominate a game, but they're too far between for me. And there is some fantasy, because they've got to throw the ball to somebody. They're going to be chasing a lot of games. So Zay Jones and Kelvin Benjamin will get work, no doubt. But I guess if I had to pick one, I'd say Kelvin Benjamin has the best chance to do something for this season. But can he stay injury-free? That's the big question mark for him. I worry about that.
Okay, well, same goes for Charles Clay, talented, but
Yeah, love it.
He's
Super.
always injured as well.
I mean, again, a potential super tight end could easily finish inside the top 10. Often can. He's on the fringe of it all the time, but just seems to always get banged up at critical moments of a fantasy
he's okay
season.
for a late round flyer.
Oh, very much. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about tight ends, let's be honest, Al's got the best. But the truth of the matter is that he's going to be as good as any. Quite frankly, you could take a pick at a number of tight ends that will give you similar value. Why not Clay?
They also picked up Chris Ivory to back up LaShawn McCoy this year.
Yeah.
He's a step up from Mike Talbot, but who isn't, to be fair.
Yeah, but he's solid, isn't he? He's another safe player. He does a steady job. He's a good third down specialist. He proved he can definitely play that role, and I think there'll be a lot of work for him. And I think that might be the fantasy player that benefits most, actually, Chris Ivory here. He might benefit a lot in that offense.
Especially, you might pick up the odd touchdown here and there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they will score and they will win some games.
Although McCoy isn't off the field much, is he?
No.
He doesn't like it.
Well, I'm worried about him.
Only when he's injured.
Well, I've got to be honest. We can say this now because it's not going to affect anything. It's certainly not a player I'm drafting, so it's not going to bother me any. And for those that have drafted me and Al have already been drafting this season because we've been in a lot of dynasty leagues this year. Yeah. So we've been cutting. Al's been cutting not his total teeth on dynasty, but it's something I'm familiar with as a format. And I will say this it's one thing to draft a McCoy in redraft, but when you're talking dynasty, I know the age will be a problem and a factor for some because you would like to think an older player might get a year or two out, so it's worth it. But I actually put a massive red flag around him. I saw a massive decline and slowdown last year that worries me massively for this season. So when you put this all together for Buffalo, I think they're going to have a very high draft pick.
I think he's fine for redraft, but
yeah,
dynasty, he's like anything.
Different kettle of fish.
Okay, well let's talk about the biggest change he probably had, and that's Josh Allen drafted in. So AJ McCarron also picked up in free agency. So
I love AJ McCarron. I've said that before.
You are one person that does like AJ McCarron.
Well, I think people are going to be very surprised by what he's capable of. But of course,
what are his strengths then? So?
For me, the strengths are very simple. He's a very, very good game manager. There's nothing wrong with that because in this league, you know, it's all about the W's. So no disrespect to other people. Yeah, it's great to have a gunslinger. But this guy will manage the game.
More of an Alex Smith type.
He's much more consistent, and he actually is very safe. Now that might not excite people, but let me tell you something else about him that's really nice. The guy can take shots down the field, so it's not like he's not always 7 to 8 yards. This guy can stretch the field, so you've got to always be wary that he's more than capable, and he has a strong arm. And in those conditions, he's got all the right tools to succeed. And underappreciated as a running quarterback, he's not Tyrod Taylor, but he can move it when he needs to. I call him a kind of a clever Aaron Rodgers. You know, he will take off when he's required to do so. When the chips are down and there's obviously room to run, he'll take it and go. And that's what you want from a quarterback. So I think he may surprise people. Now, obviously, the job is not going to be his for long because you can see they haven't drafted this guy as high as they have to let him sit on the bench forever. But it would be sensible for them to give him 1 year to sit behind AJ McCarron, and it'll be great for AJ McCarron. Be the perfectly sensible thing to do. I don't think Buffalo have got anything to rush the quarterback forward, you know, for this season. There's nothing to gain because the team is going to struggle. But AJ McCarron will win, you know, games. People will be surprised at how good he is. And you know what? There could be questions in year 2 about what happens. They will have a market. Somebody will want AJ McCarron. Yeah, he will still end up doing a job in the NFL. I'm convinced of it.
There could be a Case Keenum.
So, I mean,
home somewhere else.
If you've got a league which, I mean, I'm not suggesting, because most leagues, you know, you're
probably not going to draft.
You're not going to draft AJ McCarron. You're probably not going to draft Tyrod Taylor. But if you're in a 2 QB league, these are the kind of names you should be looking for.
If you're looking at him or Trevor Siemian,
you've got a problem. Yeah, you have a problem. You've left it too late to pick a player. Yeah, that's for sure. But
you've gone mad.
I wouldn't hold too much stock. But as a second quarterback or a third, you know, in some leagues where it's a bit deeper.
And Josh Allen as a prospect
for the future dynasty, yeah, absolutely, well worth a shot because he's in the right kind of team. They're going to need a quarterback, and hopefully he gets a year to mature. And I think that would be the most sensible thing Buffalo could do. Just 1 year, give him a year to build behind the team. And occasionally, when the game's gone, really gone, get him in. This isn't your job, but just get him in for practice because no harm in going in the real life situation when the game's dead. You know, you've got nothing to lose then.
I mean, they are a run first team anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about the Bills.
I want to move on.
No
one
wants to hear about them. Let's move on to the next team. So
yeah. Who's on your radar next?
Let's do Miami.
Oh, God, that's
another quality team.
Interesting,
so,
yep.
They picked up Danny Amendola in free agency.
Yep.
Obviously, they've drafted Mike Gesicki, who's a tight end that
Yeah, well, we can be. We'll talk.
He is a non-blocking tight end. He's a pass catcher.
We can talk about him a lot in the rookie one, but I think I can be very open about this because I've drafted him in one dynasty. I would like to have got him in more, but he's become a hot. Al knows my thoughts on him before the season had even started. Very high on my list. I had him at number one tight end on the rookie list because I believe in him. I think he went to the right kind of team. They're going to be throwing all day, and although no tight end in their first season is going to come in and light the league alight, and I don't care. 500 yards is not that exciting.
He is a pure pass catcher. From what I've read,
he is very.
So for fantasy.
For fantasy, this is a hybrid.
He's an excellent
this is a hybrid tight end. This is one of these guys that technically he could be a wide receiver.
Like Evan Ingram.
He could be a wide receiver. And you know what? The league is changing. So the big changes in the league are hybrid players. So
and amongst the Thefanpubcast community, he is somebody that
we all like him.
I mean, Shani's another guy. He's really good with rookies. He was.
Well, I was delighted. I was delighted when he
delighted.
when he was picking some of the players that I liked. I was like saying to you, I'm happy because I knew that I was on the right lines, and I'm quietly convinced this guy will have a nice, quiet season. It will quiet in terms of he will have a good season, but it won't set the NFL fantasy league alight. But you will be looking at this guy in year 2 and 3 and thinking this could be a tight end that finishes in the top 10.
Guys to keep an eye on.
He's very interesting, so definitely worth a punt. And if you are, because tight ends, there's not a lot in them in terms of production, particularly. There's I would say kind of 3 tiers. There's the very, very top, which is really a very small group. You then have the rest, and then there are people sort of on the bubble. Now, at year 1, he'll be on the bubble list. But he's more than capable in that offense to surprise people. And who knows, he may be a reasonably good tight end for year 1. Good enough.
Yeah.
And maybe with the right game environment, if you've got 2 tight ends, he might be ideal to slide in.
I mean, even if you look at last year's tight ends, OJ Howard flashed, but and Njoku flashed, but there was no real fantasy upside for year 1, was
there? No, and there never normally is, and that's something you just have to. You have to be honest in truthfulness. Tight ends year 1 don't do a lot, and they're dynasty picks. So if you're in a redraft league, you just wouldn't bother with a player like him. You're better off taking a punt on another player with a bigger upside.
Okay, he's still got Devontae Parker.
Yeah, people are expecting a lot from him.
They made all kinds of claims last year about he's going to be this world beater wide receiver. He's going to dominate.
Yeah, and he didn't.
Another poor season. And every year everyone said it's his breakout year. So is it his breakout year?
No, he's glass. He's absolute glass. Waste of space. I don't trust him.
He's got the talent though, hasn't he?
He's got all the talent in the world. But I tell you what, if I'm being honest, it will be something else in that team that will surprise people. So for me,
what?
Well, we'll talk about that in another video. I think.
Is it Frank Gore?
Well,
another guy's picked up in free agency.
Frank Gore is going to steal the running back number 1 job, 100%. In Miami, as much as everybody wants it to be other players.
In the world he should.
He shouldn't, but Frank Gore. That's what he does.
He can block.
And he blocks with the best of them. That's why he kept Andrew Luck alive as long as he did.
Surely it has to be Kenyon Drake.
You would hope so.
Surely it has to be.
But there's already talk of Frank Gore stealing touches. So at the worst case scenario, look at it this way.
Well, they don't see Drake as a workhorse back, but he will hopefully be the number 1. Frank Gore,
is it a backfield? Look, let's ask a question. So let me put it this way. So you're in we'll call it a good size league, 14 to 16 team, big league. Where does Kenyon Drake go right now in terms of ADP? Logically, assuming
if you're talking 16 teams.
16 teams. He's round 2, isn't he? Early 3.
Late 2.
Early 3. Yeah. So that. But if I wanted to get Frank Gore, what round would he be? Probably 8, 9.
Yeah, probably in our league about 4.
That's the truth. But in a normal ADP, he's probably going around 8, 9, probably.
Yeah.
So I would take a punt on Frank Gore because I know that at that stage of the draft, depending on what I've already got, he's a much safer pick than Kenyon Drake, who could be an absolute bust, and I need my higher picks to work for me.
But he could be
he could.
Lead the league
if it wasn't for Frank Gore going there, I would have been all over this.
He's on a 1-year deal. He's there for. They picked up Kalen Ballage as well.
Agreed, but when has Frank Gore ever let us down?
Ballage could be an exciting rookie.
There's one thing I've learned. I'm not backing against Frank Gore. I'm not backing against him. Something will happen to Drake, and Frank Gore will steal all the work.
Yeah, Frank Gore will get him in the.
It'll be something. There'll be some bad episode.
He's not called Gore for nothing.
He will win the job. It's shocking to say it, but it will happen. This is what will happen. This is what Frank Gore does. He's effervescent. He never slows down. He's not brilliant or exciting anymore.
You look at your quarterbacks and you fear for their wide receivers. So Tannehill.
Well, he's terrible. I mean, I can't even. I mean, I'd rather take a punt on.
They haven't given up on him, have they?
They haven't. I'd rather take a punt on AJ McCarron, quite frankly, over Tannehill.
But do you know who their backup is now?
Please tell me.
Brock Osweiler.
I had to hear it. I had to hear it. I had to hear you say it.
That sums that up perfectly.
Yeah, there's not a lot to look forward to. This is a race to the bottom here, isn't it? And what division are both these teams? What division are both these teams in?
Patriots.
Of course. So what do we think is going to happen? Well, Patriots getting a playoff. So
I did read about Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
That they were saying it was a bit of a mental issue with him. He doesn't believe in himself.
It could.
And they're trying to get that right.
Well, I think
this is the sort of thing they were saying about Kevin White last year.
I think if you've reached the NFL, been paid millions, and you've still got a confidence issue, you have a problem.
Yeah, but life's never that straightforward.
You've got
people have problems that
Yeah, I know, and that's why you scout the players. And
I read Danny Amendola.
Yeah.
Was catching a lot of passes like Landry. Do you think he's going to get that wrong, or do you think it'll be
Albert
Wilson?
Let me put it this way: Danny Amendola, right? He's got a heart of a lion, right? But he's as brittle as glass. He's another glass player. I love him to bits. When he plays, it's exciting. But he gets hurt so much. Look, do I trust it? No. I hate Miami's offense. I actually.
Kenny Stills?
It's another. You see, that is one saving grace. If you had to put fantasy, a chance of some boom or bust, he'd be a perfect best ball player.
Yeah,
he's the perfect best ball player in an offense that will have to throw a lot. Would be Kenny Stills.
Move on from Miami.
It's depressing listening to it. It really is. I'm glad you started here. Oh, it's funny though. Glad to be back.
The next team in that league, obviously, the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anun was back. He was injured, so they thought good things about him. He's back, so he could be part. They've got a lot of wide receivers. They still got Robbie Anderson. He had almost a breakout year last year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
8 or 9.
Yeah, looked very exciting.
He's a good player, but again, you've got to worry about what
off season.
He says the police are targeting him.
Off-season worries. I think the charges have all been dropped as far as I'm aware, haven't they?
Yeah,
so,
it's just misdemeanors.
But we're talking about this division, and look at what we're talking about. Some of their key players that are under the cosh already. It's not a good sign.
If he sorts out cornerbacks like what he said he was going to do to the arrested officer's wife, then he'll be laughing. He's a very talented player, and I do like him, and I think he plays with a lot of heart again, but he plays with tenacity, the kind of player that fights for you, which I love in fantasy teams. But I do worry about where his mental head is. I'm going to reel off the rest of their wide receivers. You tell me whether you're a buyer or a seller.
Yeah.
Jermaine Kearse.
I'll sell all day long. I haven't been a buyer.
Darius Stewart.
Oh, that's no point even picking him up.
Terrell Pryor.
Now, I wouldn't touch him because he's never done much for me. So no, he's out.
Chad Hansen.
No.
Right. Okay. I think if you're going to target anybody there,
I'd go Kenny Stills, late round flyer,
ball. We're on the Jets now.
Oh, sorry, apologies. I've gone. That's how bad it was. That's how disastrous it was.
Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson would be the only one
right.
that I would go
back.
for. Yeah.
Isaiah Crowell.
I'm not.
14's retired. So.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, but the problem is Duke Johnson took all the third down work away from him last year.
They've also got Elijah Maguire, Bilal Powell, Thomas Rawls.
See, Bilal Powell had a solid year. He did have a solid year.
Sort of complimentary back there.
I think this is a running back committee to avoid. I really don't like it.
If you need a running back, they're the sort of thing where you can maybe pick one up and they'll do your job for a few weeks.
It could. I mean, look, you could.
Thomas Rawls,
again, he's got potential. But the trouble is with this is, which one do you take? I mean, the thing is, I don't want any of them. If I had to take a punt late in a draft, it's because I've got a different strategy going. It's the one that's left. I mean, I'm not targeting any because I don't trust any of them. I mean, I just think I'll be dropping the player or trading them away or trying to use it for something else.
Tight end, Jordan Leggett, Clive Wolford. Chris Herndon's just been arrested. So
there's nothing in there.
We'll move on.
I'm sure somebody out of this group will come through as a waiver pickup that we haven't expected. It's that kind of team. So nothing exciting there. How does it look for the New England Patriots? 6 wins.
They got a little known quarterback, Tom Brady.
Yeah, he's not bad.
He's still going.
Yeah, he didn't do too bad last year.
For him to
bust. He won't.
Obviously, running backs, they picked up Sony Michel in the draft.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is we can talk a little bit about him, but we'll talk more in detail. I mean, I think last year is a good example. I mean, this is the problem. You try to give New England the faith at running back. This is what we tried to do last year in one of our predictions. And we looked at the two running backs they had, and both had value. Rex Burkhead being one of them, and we kind of thought, maybe these guys will do a job. But what you learn from New England is it really doesn't matter, quite frankly.
And the way Bill Belichick works is
it's
game plan.
His game plan and every team, and you cannot guarantee that player will ever get a full game.
I mean, Tinsley, I think, got 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Started.
We looked geniuses.
Well, but he faded off because he got in a bit of he didn't get in the doghouse as such, but he lost the confidence of the coach, and for whatever the reason, because he looked great those first few weeks, and I thought we were onto something. But then Rex Burkhead also come on a bit and showed some real potential.
He showed glimpses as well.
But
and then you got James White mixed in with it. Lewis ended up being the number 1 there, really.
And he looked good towards the end of the season, and then got shipped off to Tennessee, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little while.
They picked up Jeremy Hill as well, and that just.
Well, I mean, if you had to be honest, I mean, what do we think is going to happen? Well, I think.
If you had to give one, it'd be Sony Michel. After that,
it's Sony Michel, and then after that, if I took a shot, it'd be Jeremy Hill. As much as I don't like Jeremy Hill, because in redraft leagues, I'm not saying PPR, he was still touchdowns, and that might be that might
get him any round you like.
And that might be good enough, because if you've got a certain strategy, a certain way, you're looking for goal line plunges, which is enough to. Why do you need a 100-yard back when a guy can give you 6 points just on a plunging touchdown? And that's a high octane offense. So. If LeGarrette Blount can get you 13 plus touchdowns, and I don't consider him exceptionally any good. I think Jeremy Hill inside the 5 is bloody useful. So it depends how they use him. Maybe they use Sonny Michel. I don't know. Maybe he's the guy, but I don't like it. I'll be honest.
You'd like to see it a year.
I mean, I have a problem because in one league I ended up with Sonny Michel. It's a long story in a dynasty league. It's not a pick I would actually want at all. But I had to take him, and the truth of the matter is, if I'm being honest, and I've advised this in a lot of dynasty leagues, if you have, obviously if you've got a rookie pick and you have to take him, that's fair enough. He's in a high octane offense. We don't know how it's going to go down. That's fair. I'm selling
him in the first round.
I'm selling after the first year. I mean, that's a fact. No matter what he does, I don't care if he has 20 goal line touchdowns. He's gone. I'm not going to trust it for 2 years. But that's just me. Maybe he turns into the back they've been looking for since Curtis Martin. Who knows? We'll see.
Okay, well, let's. Obviously, he got Gronk still at tight end. He's decided to come back. He said he gave it a bit of thought, retirement, but he wanted to see if his body was up to it, and secondly, if his mind was up to it. And he decided this year it is, but who knows after that?
It's tricky. Like last year, we accurately predicted that my number 1 pick was, because of value in ADPs, was taking Brady and Gronk together as a stack. So that's round 2 and 3. And if you could,
3 and 4 probably,
or 3 and 4 in smaller leagues, leaving you your first and second or first round pick to go wherever you wanted. That was actually fantastic advice, because New England did have a really good year. Brady had a good year. Gronk was fantastic, stayed healthy all year. But this year, I'm avoiding like the plague. You will not see me pick him in any league, Gronk. And the simple reason is,
albeit on auto
draft with no choice. But that I would not pick him because I'll be honest. I am not expecting him to survive the whole season. When he plays, he's dominant. He's a tight end one, no doubt, no question. He comes back from every injury, but he's now late in his career. So how many more times can he come back from these injuries? This is nearing the end.
If he has another big one, will he come back?
This is nearing the end. Now, I love him. I think he's amazing. He's been an amazing tight end in the league. He's clearly the first, or it doesn't matter whichever way you look at it, he's clearly a 1 or a 2 tight end. I'm going to say for this season that you would draft him relatively high, but would you want your player to go down? No. But you get where I'm going with this. Is the reality is for this season I'm avoiding, because I think this is nearing the end and I don't want to risk anything. It's too high a pick. You still have to take him very, very high.
Okay, well, let's briefly go on to the wide receivers. Obviously, Brady can still throw the ball down.
He can throw it to anybody. Yeah.
Now we just heard, it's just breaking news actually. Julian Edelman is facing a 4-game ban, subject to appeal for breaking the substance policy abuse of the league.
Well, I had to laugh because
I know, he's doing ACL for a year. I mean, what's he been doing?
Using drugs to
coming
rehab.
on with his wheelchair.
Yeah. Well, this is another player I just try to avoid like the plague.
In PPR though, he's great.
Oh, he could be very good, but you're losing a quarter of the fantasy season to start with.
Yeah.
For the first 4 games. That's critical. He loses, because he's certain things he can do with the team. There are certain things he's not allowed to do with the team. So this will become problematic as the season nears. So I'll be honest with you. This is good for Sonny Michel, if I'm being honest. I think that's good for him because it gives him more chances to gel. It will be very good for Gronk owners early doors because there'll be a few more targets to go around for everybody. Because Julian Edelman is really good in that slot position. As the slot guy, he's fantastic. But I am very seriously worried about him staying healthy. His age as well counts against him, and now this. So I'm not expecting huge things this year, and I think the 4 games is a big loss of production.
Okay, they've also lost their wide receiver one. I mean, Brandon Cooks has moved on, traded to the Rams.
Yeah, clever pick from them to do that. It was a good move. They got a lot out of the pick. They did a really good job.
Well, what they did, I mean, if you looked at what the Patriots actually did, it was really clever.
Very good.
They got Cooks on the last year of his rookie deal, so you're getting him really cheap.
Yeah, before the price flies up.
Yeah, so before they have to negotiate a big contract.
Because he's played, to be fair to Cooks,
for a first round.
Yeah, because to be fair to Cooks, he's been very good.
Yeah.
In any team he's played in.
So they basically, got him on a small wage, and then they gave away a first round pick. They've got that back. They've traded him out, and someone else, the Rams have got to give him the big contract.
Which we were happy to do because we needed a player.
That is typical of the way New England operate.
It is.
Very
it was very
canny, very clever.
It was very slick, and they surprised people in the draft.
As much as it may annoy everybody that hates the Patriots.
Yeah,
I'm going to say they are masters.
Look, I'm fed up with the Patriots like anybody is. Not because it's not. I'm not fed up as in I am. I think they're just horrible to watch. It's not that. I actually admire and envy them all in one. Really.
Well, you got it.
I mean, I admire them in terms of how they keep doing it. I envy them because the division has been so weak for so long and it's still weak. I'd like to see other teams, knock them off the top, but they just keep finding ways to get there. I was grateful the Eagles won well in the Super Bowl. Fantastic Super Bowl final, brilliant game. And I was glad to see them not actually win it, if I'm being honest. I think the New England Patriots are within the twilight of the end of their run. It's got to come to an end. It's close. One big injury to Brady, the whole flip switches. The whole thing goes. I think the loss of Garoppolo showed some internal issues the latter part of last year, and I think we are going to see that this is the last hurrah for them. They will get gifted 6 wins from their division. They are capable of beating anybody.
I think Buffalo stepped up a bit last year, and because of where they play, it isn't an easy place.
Never easy, no.
And they run the ball a lot.
And that's the right way to play the Patriots.
The defense ain't bad either.
No, it's not. No.
Look, okay. So we lost Edelman for 4 games.
Yeah.
We've lost Cooks.
Yeah, it's a big loss.
So they've drafted in Jordan Matthews.
But often
they've still got Chris Hogan. Phil Dorsett they picked up at the end of last year.
Yeah.
As they did with Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
They've also picked up Cordell Patterson, who's normally he's special teams mainly these days. You've got Malcolm Mitchell coming back from injury. They picked up Braxton Berrios in the draft. Now you tell me, New England throw a lot, high octane offense.
Who benefits?
Who should we be targeting?
Well, there's 2 parts to this. Malcolm Mitchell is certainly a player I would target in drafts later. I think he's great value. I think he will move up ADPs quite a lot. I think he's a really good player, very underrated. When he played, he looked really, really sharp. He's battled some really weird things that have happened to him, so he's been very unlucky. But he's in that club, he's stuck in that club, and they like him. So I think he benefits, and I think Philip Dorsett is a deep ball specialist. Now, I don't think this is the problem. I honestly, genuinely believe.
He was a first-round draft pick, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I think Philip Dorsett is a fantastic. I mean, you look at kind of receptions he's had. It's very deep ball. But
he never looked like he's got it though.
No, and I think the problem is that I don't think, if I'm being kind to Brady, all things in the nicest way. I mean, as much as I admire the guy, I know he can still throw some good shots down the field. I'm not saying that he's not capable of doing that. This is not like the end of Palmer, which we predicted accurately last. We got it right for last year before the news hit. But I'm telling you now that Brady is starting to decline in his deeper throws, and the mechanics are obviously crisp when he's throwing anything short, intermediate, but anything long is not the same.
I mean, he hit Brandon Cooks a lot. I think he was successful, more 20-yard plus passes and area one, but Big Ben.
I'm just going to say that he's a benefit of a few other things that work in his favour over that, and I'm going to say that that's going to start changing now as teams observe what was there to be seen for last season. I wouldn't be surprised that we see a few more things coming at Brady that he hasn't seen for a long time.
They are masters of the game plan. I think I was watching something recently.
Yeah, they are.
They said you can't plan for New England because they change it every time.
Well, of course, but the one thing you can do is you can make sure that you give as much pressure. He didn't have. I don't think he faced nearly enough pressure for my liking, Brady, and I would like to see more of it. And I think we'll see a lot more pressure on him this year. And I don't think the deep ball's there, not as much as it was. And some of the games he's got to play this year, particularly those last 8 games, in some of those conditions, don't look too appealing to me.
Why do they keep signing players from Buffalo just to annoy them? I mean, they got Jordan Matthews, Chris Hogan, Mike Gillisley.
Well, just look at it this way. You know, when you're playing, Bill Belichick knows the value of knowing the previous playbook. And that's what you're getting when you're hiring these players in. You're getting an insight into the team you're playing that you played the last year. So it's a massive insight. Yeah, sure, things change every year, but you get an insight. And that can be very valuable.
Do you think they're trying to weaken a divisional rival as well, though?
Of course. This is what you do, isn't it? How you keep ahead of the game. That's what they do.
So, are you big on... What's your thoughts on Jordan Matthews? Because he's someone who will split opinion.
Often injured. Don't trust him. Can't buy into him. Not interested.
But if it's late enough...
If it's late enough, you take a shot.
He could be the wide receiver one.
If it's late enough, you take a shot at him and then see what happens.
There's every chance he's wide receiver one.
See what happens. But not my cup of tea. Never seems to do anything. Not for me. I can't trust him.
None of your players do anything for you.
I got some I trust. He's not one of them.
You're ending careers, you are.
I've ended a few quarterback careers, but
right. Okay. Let's just do one more division, and then we'll end that division. So let's do the AFC North.
Yep.
We'll quickly go through that, and then maybe we'll do the other ones a bit later.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's talk about the Ravens, and they've probably gone through the most change.
Yeah.
I'd say. They've still got Flacco.
Yep.
At quarterback.
Yep.
But he really showed signs of dropping off badly. He got a back injury early on. He never seemed to recover.
It was very.
Offense was a mess, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange because I think the signs are there that they're going to be making a change at quarterback with the recent.
If you look at the reserves, you've got Robert Griffin III.
Yeah.
We know what his strengths are. Running.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he had that horrible ankle injury, but
yeah.
You know, he's a runner. They brought in the exciting rookie Lamar Jackson.
Well, I have a theory on this. So my theory is that we're about to see quite a change in them, not necessarily for this season, but going forward. So dynasty-wise, I think Lamar Jackson's in a good fit. I think the reason they brought Robert Griffin III in is to talk and coach Lamar Jackson.
If Lamar Jackson goes down, he's a run-first quarterback as well.
Yeah, he is.
And he could be. They're talking Michael Vick. He could be that good.
Yeah, I think he is a very underrated. You know, again, we can be honest. We'll talk about this when it comes to it. Out of all the quarterbacks, and there were quite a few quarterbacks that went this year in rookie drafts and will have gone or still to go. I had Lamar Jackson number 2. I really like him. I'm surprised that more people are not as high on him as I really like him. I just think he offers a team, and I think this is a great fit. It's a good fit.
He could be amazing.
I mean, you're not looking at anything this season, don't get me wrong, but you're going 1 year
towards the tail end.
You know, maybe tail end when they got to start making some change, or the coaching squad could have been fired, or anything happens. He's in the perfect prime place. This is a fantastic situation for him. He can sit there, he can learn from 2 good quarterbacks, and there's a lot, there's a lot to like about this situation. There's a lot to like, and I mean, very nice situation.
There's not been a lot to like about Baltimore's offense from last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lost Macklin, they've lost Wallace, 2 probably people.
Steady pros, and very safe.
Twilight,
very much the end of their careers. But you know what? 2 good players, 2 players that can do a job, and very good job at that.
Okay, well they've replaced them with Willie Snead.
Yeah.
So coming from the Saints.
Yeah.
Michael Crabtree. I do like.
Yeah, he's very good.
I don't like him so much now because he's with the Ravens.
Well, this is the issue, isn't it?
John Brown.
Yeah, never.
Sickle cell.
Well, nice, look, lovely guy. With all the talents there, speed's all there, and everything else. But just unfortunately, never stays healthy. Perriman we've never seen.
Well,
we've seen him, but we haven't seen him do much.
And they brought in a couple of rookie wide receivers, Jordan Lasley and Jaleel Scott as well. So they're quite high draft picks they paid, and they spent on them. So they're obviously in a rebuilding phase. They've got a great defense as well, I think.
Yeah, they always seem to do that.
And that's probably the frustrating thing when they watch what the offense. I mean, they got Alex Collins, obviously a running back. They're river dancing. He was a bit of a river dancing revelation, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
If you want to call him that.
Maybe.
They've got Kenneth Dixon, another guy off a.
I think it always worries you
ACL stroke drug ban.
I think if you're looking at where they are now as a team, they're not exciting, right? where they could be in a year down the line is very exciting. And the most exciting player on their team is a kicker. And that tells you everything, fantasy-wise, doesn't it? That's the reality of where we are with him.
He's a great kicker.
And that's the problem. He's so good, and he was the best. And he's been consistent. And this is the issue that they face. So that tells you they can't punch the ball in.
Dixon, just quickly.
I would take a punt on him as a flyer. I'd take a punt because I think this is another murky and dark. I'm glad you chose this division. This is another murky and dark backfield. I'd take a punt, maybe late in the draft on him, because the upside, we talk about this a lot. I mean, I think we're going to talk about it a lot in drafting this year. Is I'll say a lot things. Yeah, I'll say things like, if you're having, and one of the problems is there comes a point in the draft where if you're drafting safe players, there's no upside. So you might have a Kenneth Dixon where you look at where he is, he's pretty much on the floor. The floor is very minimal points. That's what you're looking at. But the upside could be huge because it is potentially possible that he takes the job, ends up fulfilling what people believe he can do, and he could end up being a decent or low-range RB2. But that could be very, very good in a redraft.
Or
amazing value. But he may have disappeared. But as you're getting him pretty cheap,
pretty much free, aren't you?
So that's a good pick in terms of it's a shot.
Just someone to keep an eye on, isn't he?
It's definitely a shot. So I would take the odd punt. I'm not going to do it in a lot of leagues, but certainly in one or two, it's worth a shot.
And another team with a depressing offence last year.
we're not being. Oh, they're very interesting, aren't they? These guys.
Their first pick was a centre, so obviously they know they're trying to give Mixon every chance. I mean, Mixon's still only 21.
He's going to divide.
He's
going to divide a lot of opinion, isn't he?
So what? Are we divided?
Well, we're still. I think we're very divided still on him, aren't we?
But I think we might be the other way now.
Do you think?
Because I'm higher on him now
than ever before.
Than you are, and you were higher on him last year because I thought he might struggle. And
well,
I think he did.
He did struggle. He wasn't. I didn't put him on my.
I'm not overly high.
I didn't put him on my top 12 list. There was a reason for that. But I was higher on him, and I felt there was a chance. But he was, by the time our live leagues were hitting, and these were live league drafting leagues, it was August, early September. So by that stage, the guy's price was through the roof. It wasn't like you were getting him, 5th round, 6th round, 7th. No, you had to go in like 3rd round. You had to get 3rd round. And he went 2nd in a couple of live leagues. And that was a very high price. That was a price I wasn't going to pay. But that's not defending that I was high on him. This year, Cincinnati, no. They really frustrate me.
I mean, they drafted a right guard. They drafted 2 centres. They drafted a right tackle. So they are trying to address the offensive line.
But here's the quandary, right? So all that we've just said about him, here's the quandary. So if we're looking at ADP right now for Mixon, and we'll use the live league example, so a 16-team league. If we go Fantasy Pros, just for curiosity, where is ADP as of today? So the 6th of June. As of today, Mixon's ADP stands at, and Al's going to give us those details in a moment, because I've just thrown the question out without even talking about it. So we're about to find out.
Still going down. 31.
So he's inside. So he's at the end of the 2nd round. So that's what I expected. So
3rd round.
So if we're being honest, here's the quandary, right? So there is going to be a decision to make. Do I take a Mixon or go for a risky? If I'm looking at a lot of people might go with a 2 or 3 quarterback strategy in big leagues, depending on what the scoring system is. Do I take a Mixon over a rookie because it's pretty much more of a known deal? And the answer is I might well do that.
Let's tell you the running back. So if you're looking at a running back,
the
2 before him are McKinnon and McCaffrey.
Yeah, I personally would prefer to take Mixon over McCaffrey if I'm being honest, depending on, of course, on what the league format was.
Would you take Mixon over McKinnon?
No, I think McKinnon's got a better opportunity because I think he's going to be used as a 3-down back in many ways. He can run between the tackles and he can catch. So
I think Breeder will be a lot more.
He may well be, but we'll see how that plays out. They paid him a big contract though.
The other side of is Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
So you tell me it's not too bad. It's not like last year where he was a lot higher.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean,
McCaffrey wouldn't touch unless it was.
Let me ask you. Let me twist the question, right? So that's fine. That's the ADPs as of right today.
Alex Collins is the next one.
How would you feel about this then? So say you're on the board. It's near the end of the 2nd round. Mixon's still on the board, and I said to you, you've got the choice between Mixon and let's say Sonny Michel.
Yeah.
Would you take Mixon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would you take Mixon over Geis?
Yes.
Okay, what running rookie would you not, or would you maybe hesitate enough to maybe not take him?
If he was in this year's rookie draft, it'd be Barkley than him.
Right, okay, that's fair enough. So you are high enough on him that at the end of the second round is a potential price that you would pay.
It's now, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting because
You've got to remember he's a young lad. He's only 21, his first year in, high expectations, poor O-line, and it might take him another year to gel.
They did underuse him, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, they did utilise him a lot. I mean, he's still got Gio Bernard there, but he was only a third down.
Yeah.
Look,
it's going to create a lot of controversy, and get it right. I mean, Mixon could be this year's Gurley because it's possible. Gurley was second round last year,
especially in Dynasty. If you're looking at a 22-year-old superstar.
And it could prove to be really good. So he's going to divide opinion. I'm probably, if I'm being honest, I'm going to shoot for the moon over him. I'm going to go against what Cincinnati always worry.
Shooting from the moon? What, Jerry McKinnon?
I will take a rookie over him for this year at that point in the draft.
Yeah, but not at that point. You'd wait.
No, I'm going to take a rookie over him there this year.
Okay.
There are a couple I prefer over him.
Okay, so which ones were you?
I'll be honest. I'm going to take Rojo and Penny over him, and I believe both will give me more value.
So Ronald Jones,
yeah,
who's now with the Bucks, so
and Penny.
We'll talk about him later.
And Penny, and the reason I go in hard here is because they're not going to be around in large leagues for very long. They'll probably be gone by the end of the third.
But Seattle's O-line's worse than the Bengals.
Yeah, but Penny has got something that's going to be really useful for that. They're going to need him. They're going to need him.
But you were high on Mixon when you came in.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was high on him, but he hasn't shown enough for me to be really confident about him. And Cincinnati do what they always do, which is underutilise players, which really frustrates me. I do like Giovanni Bernard, and he was banged up for part of last year as well.
It's
and
he will.
We have swapped positions on this for this season.
I think his value's fallen a bit.
Well, it is a very solid. If we're being honest, it's the sensible play, right? That's the sensible thing. If you've any doubt, don't trust any of the rookies. You know what? Take Mixon. I've got no problem with it. I understand the logic. I'm going to shoot a little bit. I'm going to go in a different way.
I'm not overly excited about it.
I'm going to make sure that in any draft I'm in, people are going to know, and I'm going to say it now. Listen, guys, you're in a 16-man draft. I'm going 5 rounds of running backs. Come and follow me. That's all I'm going to tell you. Because nothing's going to change that, because there is far more wide receivers out there than there will be.
You've got to tailor-make that comment with the fact we play in a 60-man league and running back.
Different game. Yeah, different game entirely. But if you went down, I mean, if you go down into 14 or 12, you don't have to be as aggressive, because the running backs are going to be out there more. And depending on the league, if you're PPR, there are some.
Why you've got to qualify.
You've got to quantify it. But in certain leagues, and a good example of this is in Dynasty ones, where the PPR has been a big point, I've kind of waited for the running backs, and I've taken a lot of third down pass catching running backs because I see the value of those guys.
Point PPR again,
it's a different ball game. But if we're talking redraft, we're not talking any PPR format. You kind of have to be aggressive because the running backs won't be there. We saw this, we can bring up a really good stat which we'll save. But there's a really good stat about the difference between, the marquee wide receivers, the second tier wide receivers, and running backs inside the top 20. I mean, to be honest, there's no competition. I mean, most of them are beating the wide receivers by 50 to 100 fantasy points, and that's a huge deal. That's like gaining a player. So I can't not do it. So I want to make sure people follow me, and they have to go in hard. So I think when we get to draft in big leagues. But in the smaller ones, it's a different game. Like every league, you have to assess what you're up against.
Yeah, the scarcity of position.
Scarcity.
If in a 12-team league,
scarcity matters.
You can all have.
It would be lovely because it brings up all sorts of strategies, which is part of why we love fantasy. Is that in those larger leagues, 14 and 16-man team leagues, it used to be that having that high pick, and this is something that's kind of become more obvious now to me as I'm looking at how things have changed. ADPs have been moving, and fantasy changes all the time. But if you think about it, if you look at a lot of league results, and we are deep diving here, so this is a lot of information from many hundreds of leagues. And you look at it, having a high pick made a big difference if you knew what you were doing. But as days are changing, particularly for these bigger leagues, because scoring formats are changing, people have started adding, like we have in one league, a third-round reversals being used, which really makes those back-end picks more valuable. And because of the scarcity of position running backs, just because you've got a high pick, which is great, and you get your big guy, brilliant, who do you have at the end of the second round? There's no guarantees you have much. Mixon might not be there because he may well be gone.
You told me you're drafting 5 in a row. He's yours.
Well, I don't think Mixon will be there for me to even consider if I was at the back end of the first. I suspect other people may take him by the time the ADP settle. ADP's a lot higher. Absolutely right.
Right, okay. Well, let's...
But I like people to be...
taking a bit of a tangent off the Bengals here.
Yeah.
AJ Green.
Love him. Yeah, he's a great player.
Great player, but...
He's at the end of his career.
Andy Dalton was poor last
year.
Yeah,
I don't trust Dalton. I trust Green. I don't trust Dalton. And poor Green suffers every time.
I'll just briefly mention another rookie running back as well, Mark Walton, who they signed. So
yeah, an interesting guy.
I think he's probably for when Gio goes.
A definite deep dive. Good, interesting player. Definitely got potential, and he could be a player. When we talk about our deep list, he could be a player that comes on that list. We'll when we get there. We did very well with those deep lists last year, so again we'll talk about that another time.
Night, Jimbo.
Yeah, right. Good night. He's done.
Right, so it's got Brandon LaFell on the other side.
Never trusted him. Don't like him in fantasy. Pretty minimal value.
You've
really.
got some young guys coming through.
Yeah.
John Ross, disappointing rookie season.
It's difficult
even
to pick. The problem is what the way I worry about him is I see the speed is obviously there. It's unquestionable. It's very unique what he managed to do in the combine. You know, that 40-yard dash time is exceptional. But that does not necessarily translate to field speed. And I often tell people is. A track athlete. If it was all that simple, just to run a fast speed, you just buy in loads of track athletes. But it's not. It's the ability to cut, separate. Well, yes, but there's also basketball players. There's all sorts of conundrums when it comes to fantasy, and particularly in real life. And I'd rather have a player that can separate, knows how to gain a yard. 1 yard is more important. You've got a spin move. If you get me a yard, that's all I'm looking for. You get me 5-6 yards and you get 1 yard of separation. That's all I want. I don't need a guy who can run.
It takes me half an hour to get.
Yeah, but still. But you know what I mean. It's not always about the speed. And I think the problem with him is he hasn't had a year with the team because of injury. He's now coming back. He'll have the camp. Yeah, sure. There's potential, definitely. But it's like being a rookie. This year will be very difficult for him, and I don't expect a lot.
Do you know what I read about him, which I found quite odd? John Ross has got his confidence back. So what were they saying to him last year?
God knows. They rocked him. But that team always does. And that coach, Mark, he should have gone, right? I mean, I wrote an article on this. I'm sorry. He should have gone. If Mixon is going to thrive, if he wasn't there, I'd be all in on Mixon for this year. I mean that sincerely.
Well, Hugh Jackson as well at Brown. Should he have gone?
Yeah.
1 win in 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't even know how you say.
Although they look a nice team this year.
Yeah, they do.
But is he doing that, or is it the GM?
Well, I think the backroom staff. I don't know. Maybe he's got more influence, and that's the reason he's there. So we have to give him a bit of credit because the backroom staff and the way they've been manipulating. I mean, we know we're going on another tangent, but it is the Bengals. I think we can afford 1 or 2 tangents.
We're talking about the NFL.
Their backroom staff has done a great job manipulating the various draft rooms and getting the most amount of stock that they can for the Cleveland Browns. Okay, the results haven't shown in the last 2 years. But it's not a team I'm thinking won't turn the corner. This team will turn the corner.
AJ Green's talented. Mixon is talented.
Yeah.
Brandon LaFell is a player.
Yeah, he's a player.
Of sorts.
Yeah.
Average.
They've got two good tight ends, right? So you've got Tyler Eifert. He's a very, very good tight end, but often injured. You've got Croft, who I really, really liked, who showed that he could definitely take the role when Tyler Eifert is down. So I think the two guys are actually a really good complement together.
Both cheap now.
Very cheap, and
on a 1-year deal, proven deal.
I mean, the truth is, what you would do is, if you've got Tyler Eifert, you have to hope he stays healthy. Now, if you're taking, you don't want to take 2 tight ends from the same league, because that means you need 3 tight ends because you still got to cover a bye week. But if you don't have a Tyler Eifert and you were looking at having a second tight end that you didn't have to worry about playing that second tight end for 8 or 9 weeks of the fantasy season, he'd be ideal. Because you never know, he might end up being a starter and he could be valuable.
He's a guy.
And he gets tight ends. He gets touchdowns. He gets touchdowns in the red zone.
Double-digit touchdowns.
Yeah.
And Croft got quite a few as well.
He did really well last year. I was really impressed with him.
He did fall off a bit though.
He did, yeah. Yeah.
Tyler Boyd is another youngster that...
Can't trust him. I mean, again, this is a team. It worries me. That's why I say I'm a little bit worried. Because, look, if you're being honest, I mean, there is AJ Green, right? And he is great. We all know that. And you can double team and he can still get space. I know that. He's a great player. But in all honesty, this is why I'm a bit hesitant on Mixon for this season, particularly where the Bengals play. I'm stacking the box. I'm going to put my best corner on Green. I'm going to take my chances on stacking that box. I'm going to make it really difficult for them to move the ball, force them to throw it and see what happens. Because I don't think they've got many weapons. I don't like their team, be honest. Another team that worries me.
What do you think of Auden Tate? They drafted him in the wide receiver. Could be all right.
Again, long range, possibly. Yeah.
They've got a guy called Kermit
love the name.
Kermit?
Yeah, love the name. Could be a good story.
Like a Muppet to me.
Yeah.
Okay, the next team. We looked at 2 sort of poor offenses, and now it's Cleveland Browns.
Oh, brilliant. Well, there is hope. I mean,
there is a lot of hope.
There's hope here because you know,
let's just go through their weapons, right?
Yeah.
So they've got Tyrod Taylor. We've talked about him a bit.
I really like him for this year. I really do. I mean, I'm gonna sneaky say, I'm gonna predict that he's a top.
They drafted Baker Mayfield.
Let me put it this way: he finishes inside. He finishes inside the top 16, outside the top 12, but he finishes inside that range. Tyrod Taylor.
Well, so 13 to 16.
Yeah, 13 to 16, which doesn't sound exciting, but there will be a few weeks where he will
If
surprise.
if you want to, what about Baker Mayfield? When does he get the job?
Well, hopefully, if they got sense, not for another season. Same situation.
Number one pick in the whole draft.
Doesn't matter if you're number one pick. It's sensible not to rush him in. Look, if Cleveland get off to a really good start, maybe you can bring him in. But if they don't, I wouldn't risk it, because what will happen? What you really want to put your starter through that. I've only seen one starter in my career that started so badly on those kind of losses and ended up being amazing, and that's a Dallas Cowboy. That's Aikman, Troy Aikman, who started horrendously. He was pretty damn good, and he took some beatings that first season. I think it was 56 sacks, and he was battered, and his toughness showed through, and he kept getting up. And I have to be honest, I thought he was amazing that year, even though it was only flashes. I just saw enough to think, boy, this guy really wants to play. And he was a leader, and you could see he was a leader, and he was on a bad team. I think Tyrod Taylor offers something that Cleveland haven't had, and this is why it's such a good pick for them, because the one way to avoid sacks is to be mobile, and there is a risk with that, but I think Tyrod Taylor is a very savvy running quarterback. He doesn't do the wrong things that RG3 does, which he slides, not head first. He is a very clever, simple guy, gets the yards, and very difficult. If he gets out in any space, very difficult to stop.
Okay, well,
so I think they got that part of their conundrum is right for them.
So when does Baker Mayfield take over?
I think this is a mid-season situation. I think we'll know more by the mid-season. It will depend on.
Tyrod Taylor will be top.
Yeah, I do. And if he gets off to a really good start, it's going to be very difficult to pull him out, particularly if Cleveland are doing well.
Well, Buffalo did it to put in Peterman, who was through.
Well, that was a as you. Well, you know, my thoughts were actually honestly true at the time. I thought that was a crazy decision. Yeah. I stuck by that. I thought it was insane. And after one game of watching Peterman, I think they destroyed the man's confidence. Now, I think we will not see a lot of Peterman.
Right for anybody,
very bad thing to do. And then begged Tyrod Taylor almost to come back and play. Personally, if I was Tyrod. He shows you.
That tells you everything.
He actually went back in and played for them. And I'll tell you what, that's class. Right there, that's class. That shows a lot of respect.
Let's have a look. I mean, these have got weapons. So they've got three quarterbacks: Drew Stanton, Baker Mayfield, Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, albeit this is the situation.
The
Tyrod Taylor will obviously starts the year for the first 8 games. Keep that in mind. At the halfway point, depending on how they're doing, we'll see what happens with Baker Mayfield. They get off to a bad start. Baker Mayfield's coming in quick.
We'll break down
within 4 games, they get off to a 0-4 start. Baker Mayfield starts game 5.
I think the crowd will be baying.
They'll be absolutely baying for him to come in. However, if they start strong, 2-2, that's good enough for Cleveland. I think they'll sit him a bit longer.
Okay, well, their backfield is one of the muddier ones this year.
Yeah.
They've picked up Carlos Hyde in free agency.
Yeah, good player.
Nick Chubb up in the second round.
Yeah.
Exciting rookie running back.
Solid pick.
And Duke Johnson, who was, I think, in PPR, top 20 running back.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Caught a lot of passes. So break that down for me. Who are we looking at?
I think Duke benefited from quite a few key injuries. So I think that's a bit inflated stat. So I'm not.
Crowell was fit most of the year.
Yeah, he was, but he's not. He was never a third down back. He never has been, and I think Duke.
Was he a first and second down back?
That's debatable as well. But I think Duke benefited from a few key things that fell into his lap. I think they've already said they're not going to use him as much, and I think I would agree with that. That's how I was thinking about it for this season.
Well, I think the beat writer said that.
I think Carlos Hyde is always a danger to steal touches. So is this a murky backfield? Absolutely. Do I trust any of them? No. So I'll be honest, even the rookie coming in, I think he'll go very high value in most fantasy drafts. I can't see why he won't go inside the top 4 rounds, even in a small league. He's got to.
Well, Hyde's good. Hyde's going to be the one I want to own in redraft.
I would have thought so, but
long term, I want to own Nick Chubb.
Yeah, but it's very, very murky. I mean, and anything's possible here. So I am very unhappy with taking.
They've got a lot of weapons there.
There's a lot of talent. I mean, Hyde is capable.
And you move to the wide receiver, and the talent's still there. So they've got. Obviously, they picked up Jarvis Landry, and he is a catch machine.
Yeah, he is.
And he's a real battler, and he's someone we'd like to lock.
I like him.
Especially for 4-point PPR.
The problem will be, though, if we're being deadly honest, is if we look at... This is the issue, right? So, Tyrod Taylor, more of a mobile quarterback than a passer.
Yeah.
I think his stats spell that out. that means when you're on the move, you're not looking at the slot guy. Sorry, you're looking at deeper throws down the field. So I think...
I don't know, but Landry, like Edelman, will always look to try and...
Landry is a professional and will move wherever the space is to give him a chance. But I think this has a big impact on Landry. So I'm predicting at least a 20% decline in catches. So I'm looking at somewhere in the range of about 70 for Landry, which is good, still good, but it's a decline. I don't think he goes much above that ceiling, and I think that actually equates out to about 1,000 yards. So, and how many touchdowns? I couldn't tell you. Touchdowns are a very difficult model to predict, but this is Cleveland, so.
Well, Landry's never been one for touchdowns,
no,
especially.
But
they got a few last year.
I think you're going to have to pay a reasonable premium for Landry still. In
PPR especially.
PPR, so I worry a little bit. So I'm not as keen on him in PPR. So
well, one person you never have to worry about is Josh Gordon.
No,
what's he ever done to him?
No, you never have to worry about him. He's got. I mean, this is a really weird one because. Let's look. Can you tell me now what Josh Gordon's ADP as of today on Fantasy Pros is? Just for curiosity for our audience listening in on the 6th of June. We're talking redraft here. Just so we get an idea of what kind of price you would have to pay in a normal league. I mean, every league will be different. As we always say, the scoring will
44.
vary. So that's high. So that's in no matter what league, that's round 5. So here's my problem.
So that's about your
now,
Russell Wilson.
Now, if we were talking round 10 for Josh Gordon, I'd say great.
But you're never going to get that.
But that would be great because he's not done anything for a long time.
But
so
he has been the number one wide receiver in the league.
He has, but he hasn't done it for a very long time. It showed flashes last year that he might come back, but he hasn't done it for a very long time. So my problem with this, guys, I'm paying a top pick. This is still a high pick in any draft. On a guy who's not done anything in Cleveland. Sorry.
Has lots of risk.
I'm not taking that. Now, if it was a bit later, 10th round, he's on a low floor for me. The ceiling could be massive because he's done it before. But at this value, I'm just not interested.
There's lots of cheap jokes about his high ceiling.
I bet there is. His ceiling is very, very high.
Yeah, he has a high... Anyway, we'll talk. They've got Corey Coleman, talented receiver. But you get the feeling from... all the murmurs coming out of Cleveland that his face doesn't really fit anymore. They're looking to trade him. There's lots of rumours about Brown might trade him, and I think they're obviously coming from in camp.
What's your feeling on that yourself?
Well, I think they want to trade him. That's my feeling on him. I think he's a talented player, but injuries, and they picked up Landry. They've got Gordon. They've got an exciting rookie who I like a lot. But again, he's got troubles.
Yeah, I mean,
that's Antonio Callaway. I'm a big fan.
All I'm going to say is I think the rumours are true, and I think he will get traded. That's I do believe. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do think that's what will happen.
Then that could be good or bad depending on where he lands.
It could be, but you're again in the lap of the gods with this kind of pick. I mean, it's not exciting enough to make me go, I'm 100% okay.
He will be dropping down boards.
Definitely, definitely.
Antonio Callaway. Now he's had lots of problems in college, and he had to give up football for a while, didn't he? And then he put himself into the draft.
Well, I think
this guy could be the best wide receiver out of this draft class.
If anything,
he's the biggest thing you could say.
If anything, I think this is a good player for Dynasty because I think it's a player you put on your bench, you marinate him for a season, you don't touch him in redraft, and then you see what happens because they're going to get better. Cleveland, I really do believe, are going to get better, make more steps forward now because they've got pieces that are fitting into place. They'll be working on offense for a while. If I had to make a guess, I think Nick Chubb will shine through this season. It may be a battle, there may be a committee there for quite some time, and it might be really messy, but I think he comes out.
Well, Nick Chubb would have gone a lot higher if it wasn't for his injury.
Yeah, the injury cost him. He's about, I would say, looking at the tape and being honest about this, is he all the way back to the speed that he had when he had his amazing breakaway season? No, clearly not. But I think he's 90% back. Will he ever gain that 10%? No. Do I think he's got the capability to have a really high floor in the NFL? Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yes, he could.
Yeah,
I really do think he could. And the reason is I think that people are underrating him, and I think that's a mistake. With Cleveland improving, Carlos Hyde coming towards the end of his career, and he's really there as an insurance. I think you've got a little bit more time. I think Chubb's got a bit more time to get up to NFL speed, and I think he could definitely be a breakout player by mid-season. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished strong in the last 8 games. And actually, people were talking about him as being a very high caliber candidate next season. So it won't surprise me that Nick Chubb turns into there was a very good running back class, but he's one that we talk about.
And he could go anywhere between 3 and 7 in your rookie.
He could, and if you're getting him round 5 to 7, I'm buying all
No,
day
I mean
long.
3 to 7 overall in the rookie draft.
Oh, in the rookie. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You're probably going to get your Geis and your Barclays first.
Yeah, well, we can talk all about.
Yeah,
we can talk all about that. But many people have mixed emotions on them. But I'm a little bit more clear cut on the rookies.
And Antonio Callaway's a name to remember for the future.
I think so. Yeah,
and, he's very troubled. And if you're troubled, who do you want to mentor you?
Josh Gall.
That's exactly who's mentoring.
Perfect. Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong. Apart they're spending a lot of quality time together. That's very useful.
Okay, well let's finish off with the best team from last year in the league, and that's Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's a good one to finish on.
Lev Bell again.
Sublime.
Absolutely amazing talent.
Sublime.
I mean, especially PPR
It's
running
just
and catches.
It's just so good watching him.
The negative is, obviously, he's got injury history.
Yeah.
And for the second year running, he's holding out.
Yeah.
Because, they could franchise tag him, so he's holding out of OTAs and training camps.
I heard that he wants a clause in the contract that he's holding out for, which will stop them or effectively deny them the opportunity to franchise tag him. That's interesting. So,
well, if he signs a contract, they won't need it.
Well, no, that's true. But you know what I mean, though.
He's looking for a lot of money, isn't he? He wants to be the highest paid running back.
Yeah, and he
feels running back's an underpaid position.
And he's right. I mean, the truth of it is as I've been saying for a while, and I think you're with me on this, is I think it has been. I think I said this right back in one of our very first podcasts. It's the most undervalued position in the NFL, and I think the days of that will change, and they have changed because teams now realising that you can have dual running backs. We're talking NFL teams here, not fantasy, and that can work very, very well depending on the sort of thunder and lightning kind of positions that you've got and the players you have. But you need those running backs because those guys can control the clock, and anything that controls the clock controls the game, and that's why they're so invaluable. And they can take so much pressure off your defense that is definitely undervalued. I'd rather have a player that could milk the clock up the field, give my defence 4 or 5 minutes to rest, who's a really good defence, and let them go to work again on the next possession.
He can actually play the wide receiver as well. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's fabulous. He is, without a doubt, he is absolutely amazing, and he is the best, most patient running back I think we've seen in a very, very long time. Since, in my view, Terrell Davis, who was equally as they have a very similar style about running along the edge of the line and then just suddenly exploding off through a gap, which you didn't think was possible. That's what they're amazing at.
I mean, Bell's patience is something else.
Just
Let me ask you one more question about Bell. Do you think he'll be there next year?
No.
Well, exactly.
No, I don't. And there are a few reasons. There are a few. And do you know why? Do you know why I think it's good? It's good business for Bell, and I think it's probably going to end up being that way, because Ben won't be there very soon. Because Ben has got a very limited window left.
Well, that brings me on to Ben. They signed Mason Rudolph, the rookie, in the draft. And he's like a big baby. He's like, well, I don't know why they bothered. We don't need him. I'm going to play for another 5 years. Yeah. There's something about Ben. I think he's almost a bit of a bully. I think. So the first interview that Mason Rudolph does, he says, "What do you think of Ben's comments?" And he was very.
Well, I saw a video.
He was very sort of diplomatic, let's say. Ben's a legend. I'm sure when we meet up, it'll be fine. There's
a very good video out when Ben was going on a coach with the other rookies to the draft day. And it very much is out there. It's common knowledge. It's all about that particular draft. You can Google it yourselves. And if you watch him then, I don't think he's changed. I think he's matured in that way. I think he is a bit of a bully. I think he is someone who pretty much throws the toys out of the pram. I mean, I understand at college level these guys get very mollycoddled, these quarterbacks. I understand why. It's good for the college. It's good for them. It's etc. 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 But I don't think he's matured, and I do worry. I like him. I do really like Ben. I like his toughness. There are qualities about him I just love.
As a player, brilliant.
There are qualities I love, right? But he really frustrates me in many other ways.
Some of his comments about Martavis Bryant last year just didn't help either. He's got to earn the trust again.
It's a bad situation.
All these bad things, and it just causes a public ruckus, for want of a better word.
Yeah, it doesn't help. I mean, you got rid of a good player. I mean, ultimately, you drove a good player out of town, and he is a good player. He's got potential, Martavis Bryant, as much as he's very.
Saying Ben Roethlisberger, is he?
No, he's not. So I think it's quite interesting. But I think for Bell, the best thing that could happen, if I'm being honest, is he does kind of move. Well, he's still got a little bit left of the career, because we don't know with running backs. There's a certain window. It's a bit smaller because of the amount of contacts. That you can make the most of it, and depending on what he will command a very good price, and hopefully he finishes his career in another good offense, probably with New England, with New England's luck. That'd be a great way to finish off.
Yeah.
Knowing them, they'll probably ship Sonny Michel out by that stage and brought in Le'Veon Bell for a couple of years. So who knows? Anything's possible with those guys.
I mean, Antonio Brown, we don't need to talk about him. Everybody knows.
Mr. Consistent, best wide receiver in fantasy. They're tier 1 guys, and it's very difficult to pass them over if they're there on your draft board. It's really difficult to say no to them, and understandably so.
Now, we had a brief chat about Juju Smith-Schuster the other day.
Yeah.
I think I was bigger on him than you. I think I like what I saw from him.
Yeah.
He put a horrible block in somebody, again, blindside block against somebody at the end of the season. I think it was against the Bengals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that just, although that was horrible, I kind of like that he's got that game about him.
Look,
he's prepared to fight.
The thing is this is a bit like looking. If you look at the numbers, this is the thing I will say about him, right? And I'm going to be a little bit. The thing is about him at the moment, Juju Smith-Schuster's the kind of fantasy darling out there. So there's a lot of people high on him, right? So if you look at his ADP, it's pretty high, actually.
You're looking at a rookie that could be around for years.
He could be, but I'm saying as a pick, he's actually quite high. It's not like he's slipping under anybody's radar for this season, right? And Pittsburgh are a little bit like Green Bay in terms of their fantasy offenses. So, for example, if you look back at the numbers of the Green Bay wide receiver 2, it's a bit like looking at the Pittsburgh wide receiver 2. Very fantasy relevant, frankly. Very fantasy relevant. So the reality is, that's my big problem is even in a small league, that's at the end of round 5, but in most leagues who've got 12 or 14 teams, that you're closing in. Do you know what I mean? You're closing in on end of round 4.
Let's say you've got a balanced team. These are the players currently going around in Brandon Cooks.
However, I do like him if I'm picking him as my first wide receiver after having 3 running backs. I don't mind Juju Smith-Schuster then.
Well, yeah.
To be honest,
I'm sure you won't.
I'm sure I won't get him there, but that's
you've got Brandon Cooks around there. Who would you take out of those two?
Well, I take Brandon Cooks because I think the Rams' offense has massively taken a step forward. I think they've proved that they are a team in contention. The defense is going to give them more chances, and I think Brandon Cooks, he's more. He's more proven. I've got to take him first. But Juju Smith-Schuster is not a million miles behind for this coming fantasy. I take Juju Smith-Schuster over Golden Tate. I don't like
PPR, 4-point PPR.
I still take Juju Smith-Schuster. I trust him more.
Marvin Jones.
I like Marvin Jones for this season in PPR. Yeah, because they're more proven. They're more proven.
Okay, so you take the proven guy.
Yeah, I'm taking the proven, but they're not a million miles off. Don't get me wrong. I mean, more people will take the darling, which is Juju Smith-Schuster, over those guys. But it's so close. And the question is, it depends what I've already got. If I've got 3 solid running backs, I'll probably take Juju Smith-Schuster because it's a bit more exciting.
I mean, they traded to...
if he was there.
They traded Martavis Bryant to the Raiders.
Yeah. Good for both.
James Washington.
Good for both organisations, I think.
Yeah, I think he needed to change.
I think he needed that.
And Carr needs another target badly. After watching them last year, they lost Crabtree, but we'll talk about them later. James Washington as a rookie, they picked him if he can come in and sort of do what Juju did.
I'd say the problem is that if we assume that Juju Smith-Schuster lives up to what we think he can do, and I think he can, I think he proved enough last season that he seems a very, very strong fit for that team. For me, I don't think James Washington has a huge amount of upside for this year in redraft leagues. Even in Dynasty, I'd be very tempted to steer because I'd worry about what's going to happen to the team in a year down the line.
The longevity.
Yeah, and that's what I would avoid. It looks good, don't get me wrong. It's a really interesting prospect, but unfortunately he's fallen in the wrong team at the wrong time.
Would be?
Yeah, never done anything. I'm amazed he's still got a job.
What about the tight end? Because you got Big Vance McDonald.
Yeah, he's very good.
You got Jesse James.
Yeah.
Is that Grimble?
It is Vance McDonald's job, right? It's going to end up being that way, very simply. It really is. Jesse James,
is he fantasy relevant?
I think he could be on that offense, yeah.
I think
he could be. I mean, if I'm being honest, look, I might as well get it out of the way now. I don't take a tight end early, say. It's late in the draft, round 9, 10, 11. I'm looking for my first one.
26.
Where it could be that late with him. I mean, I don't think many people are going to be looking at Vance McDonald early. So the truth is, he's a great one for later on. And actually, in a high-octane offense, I mean, if he got me tight end 2 numbers, that's perfectly serviceable. I think that's what he'll get me. I think that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. What's wrong with that for this year?
I've got a deep rookie at the Steelers.
Yeah.
Who I like a lot.
Go on.
You're going to pick him up round 4, round 5 in a rookie draft. So
yeah.
He he can actually play loads of positions.
Right,
he can actually play running back, tight end, full back.
Always useful, yeah.
James Samuel. So he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife.
Well, I think they've talked about him in that way, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him start off on special teams for those reasons, and then maybe a few gadget plays for him. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
But he's one maybe for the future. If you're looking for a rookie for your dynasty team, I think.
Yeah, I think it never harms for a late round flyer. He's a good player. I mean, look, let's be honest. If he turns into anything, that's a great pick late round.
But I've read good things about him, and I think, he could get a tight end designation. And when he can do all those things, if you're playing a tight end that can do lots of different things.
It's always useful.
And, Gordon is a very respected member of, the fan pub, very knowledgeable, does a lot of research and reading.
Yeah, he likes him.
He's coming to me trying to trade for him.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to play it.
It's true. It's true. It is true. But it's not for this year. And you'd have to. All I will say is,
we're talking.
You're talking a year down the line. But
he's a late round flyer. It's not like you have to draft.
But those kind of players you do have to pick up. These are the kind of picks you have to use because they're the ones that give you value, whether you use it now or later or recash it in for something else. It will help your team. So. I do like him, and I do agree with you. I think he's going to do something special teams. He could be very. I think he'll do something special teams this year, and he will surprise me.
Yeah,
and if an injury happens, he's a perfect plug-in player. And the players like him make rosters, 53-man rosters, and
he's the sort of guy that probably be used on.
He could be used on anything.
Yeah, so we'll see how he goes.
But I'd put him in as a punt holder, and he's got the potential to be your best faker. He could be very useful.
I've just got a feeling about him. It could be completely wrong, but we'll see.
No,
he's a real.
I do like your thoughts.
Okay, well I think we've done 2 leagues. We probably rabbled on enough for this, so we'll just. Well, thanks very much. If you're still watching, thanks very much.
We always appreciate it.
Like and subscribe, and
we'll see you next time on the
Stay
Fan
tuned for more videos.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.